initiatives for affordable connectivity in remote communities. I invite our panel moderator, Ms. Refilwe Sohopa, who is also a member of the ZAIGF Multi-Stakeholder Committee, to take the floor and the panel. Ma'am, please do stick to time, and because we're already over, and then also just to thank you for the wonderful initiatives.
Good afternoon. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Is everybody present? Can you all stand up? Awesome, believe guys, this is the last, most interesting session. This encompasses all the other topics that we've shared for the day. I just would like you to just do a 2-minute session to just stretch your arms straight and feel yourself, and Mark, that also speaks to you. I'm so disappointed. And hug yourself. And hug yourself and say, well done, you've made it through the day. It's been very long, but it's worth it. Clap for yourself. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for staying and being present. We have a panel member that's supposed to be online. I just want to check if she's on. Yes. Okay, great. We are discussing a topic called Connecting the Unconnected. I greet everybody in peace and enjoy, and obviously all protocols observed. My name is Refilwe again, and I am, how can I say, an agent of change. So my vision and passion is basically to drive the infrastructure connectivity projects in South Africa, because we feel that inclusion is the most important aspect of connectivity. So if we're all not included, if there's anyone that is excluded, then we have a gap. So in South Africa, we have a lot of gaps that we need to look into and understand how the government's interventions are able to meet these gaps. We have specialists that are sitting on my right that are also custodians of change, that are doing everything in their ecosystems to bring everybody into this ecosystem. As a multi-stakeholder initiative, we also include government, we include private sector, as you all know, civil society, academia, and anybody and everybody that is part of the internet. So saying that, I would just like to speak to the panels and welcome you. And we've got also another panel member online. Welcome, ma'am. I'd like to just open with just a remark that speaks to the National Integrated ICT White Paper, because I think the white paper speaks to this topic extensively. This is the DTPS paper that was written in 2016, and it says that the building blocks for connectivity basically comes together to bring together a vibrant and equitable digital economy and digital society. This includes affordable access to communication, to services, devices, infrastructure, content, and quality of life. And that is just the white paper. This is what governs our topics that we are addressing today. And as policy in South Africa that we all need to be aware of, that we all need to understand, that is the gist of what we are saying, is that we need a vibrant, equitable society and economy through technology. So technology is the tool that is going to be able to bring us together. The NDP, just over 10 years ago, made a target, if I can say that, to say that they envisaged that in 2030, we will have 100% seamless infrastructure that has got that will provide information, that is universally accessible, that is available to everybody by 2030, and it also meets the needs of the citizens and business and public sector. In that statement, I would like to basically ask our panelists to introduce themselves and speak to this policy and how it resonates with them in their environments, and how government's initiatives are also coming into your environment to assist to include everybody in the digital ecosystem. I would like to introduce to you Mr. Kopano, because you are more on the ground, our infrastructure guy. So can you please just introduce yourself and your opening remarks?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kopano Ramashala, and I own and founded a company called Bakwena Telecommunications, which basically is an internet service provider and builds all types of infrastructure, whether it be fiber or wireless. And we're basically serving previously disadvantaged communities. I'm also a founding member as well as a board member of a non-profit company called Digital Africa, which is basically geared at bridging the digital divide, as well as educating everyone, not only the previously disadvantaged, but everyone from the urban to the rural areas in terms of how to use the internet, the skills that they can get from the internet, and how to basically move forward. So yeah, how the NDP affects us, basically there's various programs that the government has come with. For example, as the Deputy Minister mentioned, SA Connect. Such programs do aid us in delivering programs, especially in the non-profit space, whereby we can build community networks that will provide mesh networks for the communities for them to access the internet, and thus helping us to get to that 2030 goal of having 100% coverage. And this is not just internet penetration, is obviously needs to be affordable and accessible to all. So that's just a brief with my introduction.
Thank you very much. Next.
Good afternoon. My name is Zine Ngukwana. I'm wearing two hats as I'm seated here. At first, I'm wearing a hat as a Deputy President of Progressive Blacks in ICT, which is an ICT association operating in all 9 provinces, and we talk access and ownership. I also stand here or sit here as the CEO of Linda Mahle Management Systems, which is an ICT training provider, or ICT accredited training provider. We have opened an innovation center down in the rural areas of the Eastern Cape. So if you want to talk about the real issues, then you have to talk to us. We are down there with the people. We sit in forums like this, and we talk all good things, and we hear all good things. But come to us, those who work in the rural communities. If you want to talk about what government is doing in as far as connecting the communities, yes, we see that happening. But does it really work? After cameras, lights, and action, and everybody is gone, we are left with the people, we're left with infrastructure that is not working. On a daily basis, we deal with the people where that infrastructure was just done only for publicity. Now, if you want to talk about what we do, talk to us. I think let me stop there for now.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Over to you, Iris. Sure.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for staying. I mean, this is the gravy train, seriously. As I stood up, everyone walked out, and I was like, oops, okay, we need to make this quick. My name is Irisha Luhanga. I wear 2 hats as well. The first is Deputy Chair of SA Women ICT Forum, which is called SAWID. And the second is the CEO of a company called Redefine Human Capital. So, in terms of SAWID, we focus on women within ICT. We focus on entrepreneurs, connecting women in ICT across Africa, not just in South Africa. In terms of education, we help high school leavers and university graduates in terms of coding and systems development and ICT skills. And the reason why we chose subjects like that is a lot of learners, as you know, have gone on 2, 3, or 4 learnerships. And they're now 33, 34. They can't go on another learnership because they aren't considered as youth. And so we're trying to upskill young people with tools so they can provide the solution for what's happening in their own community. A lot of these learners are not going to find work within corporate. So we're trying to upskill them in terms of that. We also train them in terms of how to be an entrepreneur. So those learners that come out and say, yes, I want to learn how to do this. We work quite closely with the tech colleges, and we provide new venture creation, which is an entrepreneurship training as well. And we've got a research team as well. So the research team, because we're working with entrepreneurs and young people, we then give our insights in terms of what we've learned to government, to private and to public sector as well, and to sit in forums like this and to have robust discussions in terms of what's really happening out there. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And we have online Samantha. Thank you so much for joining us, Samantha. Please greet and introduction of yourself.
Thank you all, and also cognizant of the fact that the session is in between you and lunch. So I work for the Development Bureau of the International Telecoms Union, and our mandate and the work that we're trying to do is to help close the digital divide. And in South Africa in particular, we've been working with the UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office and looking at providing support on the other end to the government in the initiatives and the work they're doing to try and help them through capacity building, through carrying out research to understand what are some of the issues, what are some of the barriers, and also what are perhaps some of the sustainable models. Where are things not working? Where are things working? What can be done to try and develop and encourage sustainable solutions? Because it's all very well to fund initiatives, as my fellow panelists said, when the lights, the camera, the action's all there, but then afterwards, what happens when the donor money has finished, when the initiative has started and everybody has walked away? How do we ensure that the connectivity remains, that the infrastructure is there, that the needs are being met, and that the skills that young people do have, the skills that they need to access the opportunities and the information that is available?
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Samantha. So Samantha is also with the ITU, right? So in that aspect, we get obviously guidelines, policies, and regulations, obviously from the international multi-stakeholders. And from that, our government in South Africa, as you can see today, there is nobody from the Department of Communications that is here present. They left, but obviously this is a topic that speaks to them entirely, and obviously they need to also hear the voices of the masses that are on the ground. So these platforms are actually made for a conversation that we must all be able to understand our positions, our frustrations in terms of challenges, in terms of what we need to be doing, and that can be then listed in a research document that is going to be outputted from this discussion and be taken forward. So it would be great for the ITU people to come and intervene or sort of like be able to advise as to how we can be able to take the narrative forward. Seeing that as it may, we're talking about converged technologies, we're talking about converged infrastructure, so that we can all basically participate in the digital ecosystem. But primarily, we would like to understand in terms of, because we know that broadband needs a lot of investment, financial investment, so that the economy can be actively cultivating for industries, for markets, for people to live and strive. We would like to understand from your perspective, are we having enough partners that are coming on board to fund the projects that we are doing, or are we only concentrating on what we can do on our own? Because we find a lot of people have to make ends meet. Do you find that government is able to work with your strategies as civil society so that we can be able to meet the goals? Are you having financial aid? Are you having some sort of assistance from the technical industry, because they're also part of the ecosystem?
Okay, I'll be truthful and honest to this. Since I started my business, I have never seen a cent of any government, not even besides the financial aspect. Information, I have not even seen any assistance. It's all been on myself. Yes, there's a commercial aspect to it of which you need to make money. It's very capital intensive. I mean, I'm not dressed in a suit today because I can't afford one, because all the money goes back into the business. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, the people can get access to that internet. Two, they do have various programs, but the programs, they're not really geared towards assisting us. For example, the SA Connect program. That program stated that they will give you a backhaul. Backhaul is basically what you use to connect from one point to another point, from the data center maybe to a tower in Soweto. They say they'll give you discounted backhaul, and then you connect the people through one of their POPs, which are points of presence. So, for example, if you want to connect a township called Ratanda in the East Rand, close to Heidelberg, the nearest POP is in Heidelberg town, and that's by a train station, an old train station. To get to Ratanda town, you need to beam internet from there to a mountain, from that mountain down to that township. So those costs, how is that discount that they're giving to you gonna be affected to the end user, and how will the end user actually benefit from that discount? So at the end of the day, there is no discount.
Okay, so that brings me to another question of convergence. We've got all the different stakeholders. We have Centec, we have USASL, we've got different mechanisms to assist us to be able to work with the same infrastructure. There's towers that are sitting everywhere. There's MTN, there's Vodacom. There's a colleague that was also saying that there is no way that when they are at home, they're able to make a phone call because there's no network. Then how do you suggest maybe or recommend that we overcome those kind of challenges?
Well, ICASA has recommended that there shouldn't be a duplication of infrastructure, firstly. But it needs to be, we need to be all at places like this, you know what I mean? There should be a representative from MTN, Vodacom, and so forth, and the various infrastructure providers, because 80% of the towers in South Africa now are owned by American companies, if you didn't know. Even your telecom, your MTNs don't even own their infrastructure anymore. They sold it off. So those people are here for profit and nothing else. So we need to be able to, government needs to step in and put in policies to say, listen, so-and-so community ISP or so-and-so company wants to provide services in this community. From this point to this point, they don't have coverage. Can you assist by giving them a certain discount because they are trying to get services towards that community at a discounted rate so they can access it, you know what I mean? And for us to not duplicate infrastructure, we need to be in one place. So for example, structures like the ITU, the telecommunications union should be stepping in and saying, guys, let's work together and let's help everybody to actually benefit from this ecosystem and all of this infrastructure.
Yes, that brings me to Samantha. I think that question, you can answer it maybe through the project that you're currently running as well, so that you can be able to give us a more perspective of how the ITU is interacting with the South African government state. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so one of the pieces of work that we've been working on doing is looking at, we've done a policy regulatory analysis and seeing how it works, and what we've seen, and we've done this in a few countries now, and often, as you say, the approach is not well coordinated in country. So you have different initiatives ongoing. People are not talking to each other. There needs to be, and South Africa is not unique in this, better coordination among different departments, also discussion, even things with like how money is being used, where money is being allocated, how it's being allocated. Um, Electricity it's a huge issue in South Africa. It's in some cases a huge barrier to the connectivity. Where the electricity is unreliable, it makes it difficult to ensure that connectivity is then reliable. And we've seen it in other countries as well, you know, trying to align projects. So bringing out electricity and infrastructure, a policy of dig once or sharing, so that you can try and deliver services to the same area, but also reduce costs and maximize the resources being used. So that's one thing that we have been working on and advising the government. We've also done, as part of the work, we've done an analysis and given some recommendations and best practices and examples of how countries, including in South Africa, can set up and make use of universal service financing. So various countries have different funds and how they have set those funds up and how they administer them and how they give out and decide on the projects to invest in, how they can monitor, make sure that the money and the impact is the best. Because often what we see is there may be money for urban investment, but where we see the lack of investment is in rural, and often those are areas that are harder to reach. As you say, you have to beam up from a railway station up a mountain down. So that they're difficult to reach. The populations are poorer. The usage is less. So in terms of the revenue that can be expected back, it's a lot less. So there needs to be some incentives and better incentives to ensure that there is connectivity in those areas. And that's what we're looking at doing. We're looking at trying to gather information, help the government be able to make better decisions, and see what would be the best ways, either technology or incentives, to encourage the connectivity being delivered in those areas.
Okay, I think, Mamzini, I'm coming to you and would like, because in your space, you're working with education and skills development, obviously that requires resources. Those kind of resources would be your gadgets, your tablets. I think those are, besides the infrastructure, other elements that are very key, because it is actually the actual access. Because when a person has a phone, they've got a resource to give them access to the internet. So we would like to understand, in your space, with the technology education that you're giving, how are you assisting young people to get involved in this space? And are you creating applications that we can invest in? Are you able to reinforce ICT policies in your areas? Is there any way that the community is listening, and I know that you want to, you have burning issues, you want to put them on the table, so please, the floor is yours.
Refilo, thank you so much. I think just like my brother here, Kopano, I'm going to be truthful as well and being very honest. it is a pity that our session is being done last. And the people who need to hear what we have to say as the stakeholders, as the SMMEs, are no longer here. It's as if now we're talking to ourselves. This becomes yet another talk show. And I'm done with the talk shows. Now I need action. So if we are really to go back and look at the assistance that we're getting, whether from government or from a private sector, it is very minimal. We are on our own as SMMEs. If you want to come and be an SMME, just know for a fact that we are on our own. You have to start from scratch and finish on your own. I think what is of critical importance right now, let's go back and talk about the connectivity, because if we don't touch that, because it really affects what I have to do when I open up that innovation center, and I chose a rural area down in the Eastern Cape. That's where we work. If you want to talk about South Africa being the most unequal country in the world, we see it, we live it. We don't sit in ivory towers and write policies and tick box exercises like it always happens when people write the policies. We live with the people. It's bad out there. Let that sink. It is bad out there. People don't have access to information because that very broadband connectivity that has been put in there has never worked from day one. And even if it does work, because we don't have people who have been trained in the rural areas to be able to maintain that which has been put in there, we have to call someone from Gauteng who will come, after 2 weeks or so to just come in and switch on put on a switch so that this thing can work again. What needs to happen, Refil, is to impart the skills to the very rural areas so that there's no influx, this much influx that is coming, to these big cities. The people down there in the rural areas do not lack capacity to think. They are not disabled in their minds. They just do not have the information that you and I who stay in Gauteng have. They need that. I'm going to make an example on a personal capacity. Only 2 weeks ago, Linda Mahle Innovation Center that I had opened, we had a graduation of about 41 students. It was all over the publications. You can go and check it out.
Congratulations, we saw that, yes.
Yeah, the reason why I'm mentioning it is because when we went down to that rural area, we refurbished a very old school. Now we're working on it, and we're a Cisco Networking Academy. We met, Mark, I'm looking at you, we met people who had never seen a laptop before, or maybe they'd seen it when they're going to SASA or something like that. We started them from what is called, I don't even think some of you know what typing master is. We had to start them from there. To digital literacy, to computer literacy, and then we trained them on Cisco courses. All 41 of them, we got 100% pass mark for 12 months, 96% cum laude. The reason why I'm mentioning that, and of course we were working with ILO, because trust me, it's very difficult to find companies to assist you in South Africa. My innovation center, I've been assisted by Software AG to put it up. I'm working with Cisco. I am working with ILO. I'm working with ITU. I hope you are listening that you didn't hear me saying anything about government. I'm black, female owned. 100% black, female owned. Working in rural areas. Doing exactly what government wants to be done in as far as upskilling the people. If you want to talk about digital transformation and digital economy, whilst you're leaving other people behind, let this not be just on a policy and something that you woke up and read. It might be something that you live. We live that as SMMEs. And there's no assistance. Those people right now, they are qualified to come and work anywhere with that certificate, including cybersecurity, Python programming, and any of the networks, programs that we can think of. It can happen, Refilo, it can happen, but people just lack access to this, and we need to do that. And the people that we want to be talking to, these SMMEs here, are not in the room right now.
Thank you. And in terms of you accessing resources that you have currently, is there a way in which you can secure your assets? Because I think we also need to have whatever little infrastructure that is available in your areas to be able to make sure that is sustainable. Do you have such plans, or are you having any access to any networks in your area, community networks that you may have access to?
Are you talking about the infrastructure that's there?
Infrastructure that is available currently that needs to be secured as well, so that you can have it sustainable and sustain your projects as well.
It's our
your
own.
resources.
We are
is
on
your
our
own.
own. We've got our own infrastructure that we put in there, and we're doing the security on our own. I don't know how much I can stress this, that
Okay.
everything that we're doing it ourselves.
On us.
So we have our own systems that we've put in place so that we ensure that infrastructure is, is sustainable. But we're doing that on our
On
own.
your own.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure how is it that I can be able to attest to the 79 or 80% penetration in South Africa, but from what I'm hearing today, I think we need to assess the situation and get proper analysis and measurements to see how much of a divide we actually have to reach in South Africa, because our target is 2030. So we're in 2024. So we have 6 years to go. And with these 6 years, we still have people that are not educated. I think we've got 81% of learners, young people, that are not able to read, just to start. So we can imagine the type of entrepreneurs that we have, that you have to empower and make sure that they participate in this vibrant economy, because I think the idea is to have this economic ecosystem that is digital, where everybody can be able to participate. So can I just find out what are your challenges, because you interact more with professionals, we interact with entrepreneurs in your space. What is it that you are able to achieve with the limited resources that you have?
Sure, thank you. So I think I'll just start with the landscape of South Africa. I think sometimes it's good to look at where we are at. So if you look, we've got the highest youth unemployment rate in the world. In 2019 and 2020, Bloomberg published that we had the highest unemployment rate overall, which I don't agree with the most unequal society. And productivity is the stats where we became 60 and then 61 out of 63 countries worldwide in terms of our productivity. So in terms of productivity, they look at various criteria as to why are we so unproductive as a nation. A large part of it is our high youth unemployment, our digital illiteracy rate as well, because if you can't get onto a computer and apply for a job, that's a barrier. If you can't get medical assistance through systems, that's a barrier. If you can't, and I think COVID was such an interesting journey for us, because you then saw the digital divide in between the haves and the have-nots. So you got to see kids that went to private schools that had access to laptops, iPads. They didn't skip a beat. We went from in-person school to online the next day. And then you got to see kids in the township and rural areas and going to government schools that just stayed at home. There was nothing else for them to do. And that should have been an eye-opener for us to say, guys, this is not right. This divide is huge. So the barriers that we see, because we work with entrepreneurs across Africa, I can be talking to a Nigerian entrepreneur or a Kenyan, and it's like they drink entrepreneurship Lucozade. They understand money. They know how to pitch in Paris. They've been to London. They understand the landscape of money. South African entrepreneurs, when I work with them, I spend a lot more time dealing with legacy issues. What's happening at home? Have you had a meal to eat? Do you even want to be an entrepreneur, or is it just because you can't find a job and now you're just doing this, but you're not 100% happy about doing this? So there are quite a few barriers, but like my colleagues have pointed out, the journey that we are on as entrepreneurs ourselves is a tough journey. Because if you speak to government, if you speak to different organizations, you're on your own. We've got the policies, we've got BBBE, we've got enterprise supply development. Where's the money? Show me the money. Show me the money. A fish rots from its head. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. That is really quite concerning. As an ecosystem and stakeholders, I think it's something that we really need to start with from the bottom, and then we can go top. I think with regards to maybe a sense of how do we come back from this, because it clearly seems like it is upon us to be able to move the elephant and get it, there is a notion of innovation which we are not exploring. We want to understand in terms of innovation and policy around innovation, because I know that there are IP issues whereby people are not comfortable to express even in the ISP space, to be able to share information. Then the dynamics of the innovation space, do we really need education and skills that we currently have in South Africa, or do you think we need to change the scenario and start, educating ourselves differently?
Okay, yeah, I'd like to actually agree with you. We need to start educating ourselves differently. The current model doesn't work. And it starts with, obviously, as we said, getting people connected and training them on how to use the connectivity, and then we can target them getting the right to access the right type of digital skills, information, and education that will be available for them. So, I mean, I've learned a lot over the internet, more than I learned at this very campus, because I studied at this campus. I studied IT here. And one interesting thing is that in my first year, there was this lecturer called Mr. Tom van Aert. I literally saw him once. He came into class and said, guys, you're doing IT, everything is on the internet. This is the first and the last time you're going to see me. For real. And that was true. He was like, I run a business, I'm a lecturer, yeah, but everything is on the internet. Here's an IP address. I've got notes on the intranet for you to go see. Whoever bought the textbooks, unlike. And that was it. So that's what we need. We need people like that, and we need, obviously, education to move in that space. Whether or not IP is there, IP, we want to protect it because of the profits involved. But right now, profit is not what we need to focus on. We need to focus on people actually getting access to information and upskilling themselves so we can function as a country, as an economy, and be on the same platform and level as our Nigerian and Kenyan brothers. I mean, for example, take M-Pesa from Kenya. That technology, what it's doing in Maputo, Mozambique, and the other African countries, people have millions on their phones. They just transact. You're at a tuck shop, you buy a cool drink with your M-Pesa money. You want to buy a car, I transfer it on M-Pesa. And in South Africa, I need to have a bank card, what.
Thank you so much, Refilo. Yes, definitely. We need to relook at the whole education system. You cannot in 2024, I studied at UCT and VETS. You cannot in 2024 still have the same curriculum that I had when I went to UCT in the early 90s. That my daughter now is also still subjected to that type of curriculum. We are now talking jobs of the future. And we're still training at institutions like these ones. People still do sociology, psychology, and whatever the case may be, and I've got nothing against those. But if you're looking into the jobs of the future, even teachers, just like your lecturer who didn't attend. So those jobs of the future, we need to have new skills. There's one thing that's concerning me, Refilo. If you're looking at the policies right now, particularly if you're talking about internship, the internship, because we also take interns in at Linda Matle. When the policies were written long time ago, it wants somebody to have completed a 3-year university or college qualification. That time we train people on the skills that are needed, because we're bridging the gap between what the employer and the student is looking for. And yet we cannot take those kids on internships because they don't have the 3-year qualification. So we're still living in the old days of you wanting, and I've got nothing against a qualification coming from university. I wanted to hear me clearly, but I think something needs to be done. We need to relook in as far as where are we going? And we also need to inculcate culture of entrepreneurship. Kids should not be looking for jobs because there are no jobs. But if you're coming over this side of entrepreneurship, you must know that you don't sleep. You work right through. From morning, and I'm looking at you over there, from morning to afternoon, you are your driver, you are a sweeper, you are a team maker, you are a CEO, you are everything. If you want to make it, and do not rely on people who rely on policies alone without implementation plan. You can write a policy, but without a proper implementation plan, it will remain just a paper.
I want to share something quite funny. A few years ago, I went to a CMAX prison. I was teaching men that are serving life sentence how to be entrepreneurs. I mean, they know how to be entrepreneurs anyway. Just kind of, these are the rules of the game. And I remember the first day I walked in, and there was this tall guy. His name was Sam. He came and he hugged me, and he was like, "Hey, you are Resha Luhanga. This is where you live. You got this amount of kids. Your husband does this. This is your business." See, has anyone been to a CMAX prison here before? It's like in the movies. You go through a gate, they lock the gate. You go to another gate, you look down, you don't make any eye like that, like the movies. And I'm like, "How do you know all of this?" He's like, "No, I Googled you." And I was amazed because I realized that as we create communities of enablement, for example, like a prison, these men, the whole idea of trading cigarettes is no longer what they do. They trade data, internet. And I was so amazed that in a CMAX prison, this is what happens. So I just thought I'd do a quick detour there for you guys to think about that. The other thing is I was at an entrepreneurship function, a UK-based entrepreneurship function about a year ago. And I sat at the back and I sat next to this gentleman by the name of David from the UK. And I said to him, "Well, what are you doing here?" Because this is about township entrepreneurship. And he said, "No, I was hired by this and this and this consultancy out of the UK to come and do research on your entrepreneurs in the township and to give advice." So I said, "Well, what do you know about the township? Have you ever slept there? Have you ever eaten there? Like, I don't understand. Why are you telling us and putting it on your research data as to how or what we need and what our barriers are and the solution?" So to answer your question, we in this room need to create our own narrative. We can't have someone coming externally and telling us how we actually need or what we need. We need to say, "This is what I need." So in terms of tech, and this is what I tell my students all the time, we need to create the solutions for the places that we live in. We are not Silicon Valley. If the gogo needs her pension, we need to create the system on our app that can actually bring the money to her house, or whatever it is. This idea of we need to be the next biggest, greatest, no. Just do what you can do where you are at with the tool that you were taught, and that is how we're going to transform things. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arisha. Samantha, do you have anything to add to that?
I think coming from the policy perspective, I understand that it is frustrating and it takes a while to have the right policies, the right regulations in place. But I also agree, and the aim of the ITU is that we take we take our research, we take our examples, and we sort of lay it out, and then it's for the countries to pick and choose what might work for them based on their situation, because what works in one country doesn't necessarily work in another country, but it gives you an idea of what someone else is doing, and it can then maybe lead you along the way to think about what might work for you and for your country. One of the things that we are doing is we have been doing some research and looking at community centers, and we actually also looked at the Linda Marley Innovation Center, and thinking about how these centers are run, how we can look at improving digital skills, how we can make the centers more sustainable. And there are different, and we recently held last week just a feedback session just to test some of the theories that we've come out with, because there are different ideas and ways, and some of them came from the students themselves, suggesting about how to improve the situation, how to think about bringing that connectivity out there, how to get more young people trained, using the technology. And I think it also comes back to what you were saying, is if you have technology serving the needs of your community, then you will encourage more people to use those services and that technology, which will then bring about more investment and improving the services. So I think it's over to you guys as the entrepreneurs to help provide the demand.
Quite interesting. I just have, can I do 3 more questions or not?
Okay, not to the panel, but I think if we take the questions from the audience, because we have run well over time.
Okay, noted.
There's just one question online, which I can provide.
You can take that. Okay, cool. Thank you very much for your input. Please, may we open the floor for questions? We can, wow, okay. Okay, all right.
We still have lunch after this, so we will have a lot of time.
Yes, we
to
have
engage.
lunch after this. I think it's, yeah. Can we start with you?
We'll just take 2 questions, if that's okay.
And number 3.
Oh, we've got 2 questions online. Do you want to address those?
Okay, let's hear what are the questions online. We can start with that.
So online is, the first question is from an anonymous attendee saying, how do we ensure that over time access to the internet becomes a human right in line with the AU protocols? The second question is, do we have the evidence on empowerment to rural communities on enforcement of rights as well as basics regarding loading information on platforms, considering that PAPIA and GDR exist, classification of publicly available information? I think this could have been really great for the previous panel, but if anyone does want to answer. So Merifile, I just wanted to ask if we can keep it to at least these 3 questions and ask the panel members to keep the responses to 2 minutes.
Okay. Can we please get the first question again?
How do we ensure that over time access to internet becomes a human right? That over time, access to the internet becomes a human right in line with the AU protocols. Unless there's a term called overtime access, I'm not sure.
Okay, Samantha, maybe you would be the best person to assist us with that one.
Yeah, sure. So we have been, as part of the mandate of the ITM, we've been working with other organizations as well to ensure that access to internet is available to all, that it's not a barrier. So what we sometimes see in countries is, particularly in, for example, refugee camps, but it's not only just refugees. In a lot of countries where you have to provide data to be able to access services, for example, to sign up for a mobile phone, and that in itself becomes a barrier, because there are rural people, there are people who have just don't have the ability or the know-how to even have something simple as a birth certificate, which means prevention to ID, which prevents them from accessing connectivity. So there's a lot of work going on in the international community to help address that and ensure that everybody does have access, and everybody who wants to have access has access, and also teaching and making it known what are the benefits of being online, because there's a lot on what is bad about the internet. We've heard earlier about the risks, information getting out in the public domain that maybe doesn't want to be shared, but there's also a lot of benefits and a lot of possibility through the internet. And one way that we've seen a lot of countries doing this is through government services. By putting a lot of government services online, you're helping them to educate the population, encourage them, get them to start using services, and look at the internet as available as electricity or water, which I know is not readily available in all locations now.
Okay, yes, there's quite a few issues that we have as challenges. The next question, please.
So the next question is on evidence on empowerment of rural communities on the enforcement of rights, as well as basic loading of information, considering that PAPIA and GDPR exist.
Okay, I think that one is
From the
referring
previous
to
panel.
data protection and
privacy.
cybersecurity, of which we, I think, have addressed those issues in the previous panel, unless if we have somebody that can be able to assist us with Ntate Moeng.
Okay, colleagues, I think a lot has been said, and just from what I'm hearing, in the morning, I think we are in high spirits that a lot of work has been done. But being on the ground, we can see that a lot is not being done. And I think I am also from Northwest, I see in the rural areas, there's a lot, the digital divide is there. In Limpopo, I see it, it's there. And I think from what we're saying, policy level, it's all good that we have all those nice things in place, but at a ground level, operational level, as you said, without a plan, without budget, and stakeholders like yourself being involved, we will not have anything. So, and not only infrastructure, but even security, because we give connection to people, and then they use their devices, and they don't have access to secure the devices, and then the next thing they are scammed by people. So it's a huge problem. Yeah,
Thank you very much. And I have one other question that I will quickly ask, if you can.
As a closing question. A question to the panel and possibly the organisers as well. Did government and the politicians get a heads up that this wouldn't be a session in which we're genuflecting to the politicians and that they'd actually be called out on their bullshit? And the second part to that question is, assuming that this is a regular occurrence, which it is, of government being in the room when people are pandering and not being in the room when actual conversations are happening, what sort of strategies are taken to actually get the politicians to do their bloody jobs? Thank you.
Okay, I agree with you on both your points. Obviously, they're not here. But when it comes to the politicians and bringing them in the room, I've just decided that we should just leave them alone. We are here. We are like-minded people. I think we are very energetic. I think we're very intelligent. It's up to us to come up with the solutions. There's no, we can't waste our energy in complaining and moaning. One of the moderators talked about voting and not having if you vote, at least you'll have something to complain about. So we also need to do something, and that's the solution. Let's leave them out. There's other private organizations or non-profit organizations like your ISOC and other bodies that are out here to help people who want to actually get their communities connected and to want to get education and skills out there.
Well, I agree. I agree. I suppose really, if you don't do things for yourself, you're waiting for somebody else, nothing will ever happen. I tick all the boxes of a person who's supposed to be supported by government. I'm black, female owned, I'm educated, I work in rural areas. But since I opened my company way back in 2011 to now, just like him, I don't know a cent from government. So really, if we don't, let's leave them up until, you know, a political will is something else. If you just talk without really having a political will of really doing things for the people in all these rural areas in South Africa, not just Eastern Cape or Northwest or Limpopo alone, everything is exactly the same. I can be in the Eastern Cape today and tomorrow I'm in Limpopo. It will be exactly the same thing. The only difference is the language. But they all suffer the same. I implore any one of you to go to the rural areas and see what we're talking about, that we're not exaggerating. It is the real truth. And we work without support.
So my last closing is just to say the future is in our hands. If not us, then who? The whole idea of education and how we learn needs to change as well. So there's a skill that you want to learn, you need to equip yourself to learn. No one's going to do it for you. So I think we must stop looking at others to kind of shift and change. We need to be the change that we want to see in the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we have just one last question that we need to address? We can't leave you out.
Very quickly, we are 10 minutes over time already.
Thank you. It's really unfortunate that UDM is not here, because exactly what is raised from the Eastern Cape is what I raised. And it has gotten worse, actually. In as much as we're saying we must do things ourselves, there's someone whose performance contract is ticked against the performance that's happening. So I'm saying there's an element of problem even in that. And one of the things I raised yesterday is the monitoring. Single gravel road, you go to a single 20 something. It's like the gravel road that is in Tsojana. And then you have the electricity. Where I come from, there's no load shedding in the deep rural. But there is no connectivity, Vodacom, no MTN. So don't tell me about load shedding, we don't have it. But the question is with MTN, the telecom towers next to me, I cannot at all get connectivity. I'm a lawyer, I'm a cyber lawyer. I don't need to be in Gauteng. I can be in Tsojana. My clients are over the world, but I can't do that because there's no connectivity. And so I'm then saying, like I said yesterday in Patinkubu, it might help that the questions we have, we be given an email address to send like we did with the students yesterday. Those questions must be collated and taken to the department, because my sense is that where we are and where the department is are miles ahead. What was said some 20 years back, that bridging the digital divide, I know it's in Xhosa. They say you build the bridge and you help them walk. There's not even a bridge. That was when we started with the e-law before the ECT Act. And I'm saying let's assist ourselves by making sure that all these questions that are in all these hands and the frustrations, whatever, they are documented. I'm an IP lawyer. I'm saying it's part of the intellectual property. The moment we send them, it's clear then that we've made a statement. We can't live here with the questions because we're not assisting government. And as a veteran government official, those questions, you don't have the impact of them in making a shift. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your inputs. In the interest of time, Would like to close just with a closing remark from our panel. And thank you so much for your participation. And we are so sorry we have to cut it short. But we also agree that those questions are super important. Let's get them online so that we can capture everybody's essence of their needs and their perspective. We also do need recommendations. The platform is open for you to also participate online. Thank you very much. Please, your closing comment. Please, may we start with Ma'am Samantha, because you're not here.
Thank you, and thank you all for having me today. And it's interesting to hear the perspectives on the ground. We're looking at the problem from two different sides, but we are working. The ITU is working to support the government. We are undertaking research, looking at how to support the government having sustainable solutions, using funding more effectively. Some of that research will be coming out shortly, and I hope it is of use and that we will be making progress in the right direction.
Thought I give it my closing comment. I'll just repeat it, which was, if not me, then who? And that's what it really is, hey? Either we can be a stat, or we can actually just stand up and say, no, this is not the future that I want. This is the future that I want. Easier said than done, as we hear from our colleagues living in rural areas without Wi-Fi, data, etc. But it's for us to make the decision. Thank you.
Shortly from me, if you want to talk bridging digital divide, and you also are talking about leaving no one behind, let that not just be talk. Live it, do it, walk the talk.
Yeah, closing remark from my end is that, yeah, we want to actually walk the walk and talk the talk. And by that, we formed a non-profit company called Digital Africa that will be definitely connecting people in the rural areas and training them in not only using the internet, but also the available digital skills, free courses, so on and so forth. So we want to build that bridge, walk people across it, and maintain the bridge as well. Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you, madam.
Thank you so much. Such a pertinent topic and so many points brought across. I think for me, the main point that still stands out is very much the issue to say, why is it a coincidence that when government left, we had to have a very pertinent conversation, and why and how do we mitigate this? But yes, thank you everyone for attending today's session. Thank you very much for being a part of the proceedings. It has been a wonderful, wonderful day one of the ZAIGF, and definitely is to set the precedent for future fruitful collaborations and conversations. Thank you.